Hi, I'm Neil Kelleher. In my previous few videos, I've been focused mainly on the sitting bones, retracting the sitting bones or pulling them apart, which generally tends to cause the lumbar spine to increase its back bend, and also squeezing the sitting bones together, which tends to cause the lumbar spine to flatten. And one pose which we used that in was child pose, as a way, particularly squeezing the sitting bones together as a way of getting the bum to the heels. And there may have been another, I think I did it for bound angle, I can't remember. But anyway, an important point with sitting bone control is that it can cause, because it's actually working on the SI joints and the lower lumbar spine, when you spread the sitting bones, you're actually, it's called nutating or nodding the sacrum forward. So you're moving the tailbone, the bottom tip of the tailbone, away from the pubic bone. It might only just be a slight amount, at the same time pulling the sitting bones apart. So that causes the sacrum to nod or tilt forward. When you pull the sitting bones inwards, that causes the tailbone to nod back. And this is actually, so the sitting bones move inwards. There's actually movements of the hip bones relative to the sacrum at the SI joints. So moving and controlling your sitting bones actually has an effect on the SI joints as well as the lumbar spine. And one thing that can happen is it can cause a little bit of tenderness in the SI joints and the lumbar spine, but one advantage is that you can improve control over your SI joints by doing these, and you may find it helps improve flexibility or your ability to do certain poses just because you are working on the SI joints. That being said, one thing that you might want to focus on while doing sitting bone activations is actually using your transverse abdominis, particularly the lower portion of the transverse abdominis. And if you've seen some of my transverse abdominis videos, the lower band of the transverse abdominis attaches between the points of the hip bones and also to the inguinal ligaments. And it can be used to create an inwards pull on the front of the hip bones. So while with sitting bone control, you're mainly spreading the sitting bones or pulling the sitting bones inwards. You could also be just simply lifting the sitting bones and dropping the sitting bones, and that may not have quite as much an effect on the SI joints. But with transverse abdominis control, if you actually activate your transverse abdominis, both while retracting the sitting bones or spreading them, you may find that it helps to alleviate any SI joint or lumbar spine discomfort while operating the sitting bones. So my general recommendation is, once you have a feel for retracting your sitting bones, and so retracting, pulling inwards, and protracting or spreading your sitting bones, once you have a feel for that general action, and once you start practicing that in different poses or experimenting with it in different poses, one thing that you can also try doing is, either before or after you do the sitting bone activation, try to activate your transverse abdominis. Simple way to do that, the lower band in particular, is to create an inwards pull on the front of the hip bone, so the A6, the eyes of the hip bones. So you can work at creating an inward pull on the A6. You could additionally experiment with creating an inward pull on the inguinal ligament. And the basic recommendation is to do one before the other. So say, spread your sitting bones. Once you spread your sitting bones, once you have a feel for that, then try creating an inward pull on the A6. And from there, you might try to additionally add an inward pull on the inguinal ligaments, if you can imagine that or control it. Notice the effect it has on your sacrum and your lumbar spine. Does it feel good? Does it feel not so good? Does it not make any difference? And based on those observations, you can decide whether or not to use it. Likewise with retracting the sitting bones, you could retract your sitting bones first. Once you can feel that, try creating an inward pull on the A6 and the inguinal ligaments, so your lower belly should pull in. Notice the effect. Does it feel good? Does it feel not so good? Does it cause pain? Does it alleviate pain? Another option is to try activating your transverse abdominis first. Pull in on the A6 and the inguinal ligament. From there, spread the sitting bones. Notice the effect. For me, it doesn't feel quite as good. Likewise with retracting, retracting the sitting bones. Pull the A6 in, pull it inwards on the inguinal ligaments, and then from there, pull in on the sitting bones. That doesn't feel too bad. But also note, depending on the pose, so if you are kneeling, same thing. You might try spreading the sitting bones first, and then from there, activating your transverse abdominis. Notice how it feels. Or pulling your transverse abdominis first, and then from there, spread the sitting bones. Likewise with retraction, retract the sitting bones, pull the A6 and the inguinal ligaments in. So your lower belly your middle belly may also activate, that's fine. The more important point is noticing the effect. So here I'm finding if I just retract the sitting bones, it doesn't feel too bad. If I retract the sitting bones and pull the lower belly in, it doesn't feel quite as comfortable. So the important point is to be aware of both actions, that you can separate them, that you can control them individually, play around with them or experiment, find out which combinations work for you, which combinations are the most comfortable, which combinations alleviate pain or don't cause pain. Anyway, that's it for now. If you have any questions, please do feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer them. But hopefully this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Namaste.